So we are continuing today in our series on Advent, all right, and it's just simply called Advent. All right, we want to just go kind of straightforward with it. Advent is a word or phrase you might be familiar with. It's more common in liturgical churches, such as Catholic churches, Lutheran churches. But if you aren't aware of it, or even if you are, I want to give us a little bit of an idea of what Advent is, or what it's supposed to accomplish for us, all right? Advent is a season that leads up to Christmas. It starts 4 Sundays prior to Christmas. And each Sunday you have a theme that you look at, all right? And basically in the ancient Western church, they created this rhythmic cycle surrounding the Christmas season to try and help people be in the right mindset, to slow down, and to focus on the right things, all right? So the word Advent in Latin means arrival. That's what it means, is arrival. And Advent is about the idea of preparing for the arrival of Jesus, the Messiah. All right, in the historical church, they would fast during this time. They would abstain from celebrations and festivities. They would give more to specific causes financially, and all around just focus themselves on the season that they were in and what was coming down the road for them. Now, nowadays, I think for us, Christmas season doesn't really look anything like it did historically for the church. All right, if you're anything like me, like we rush from one thing to the next. We're trying to find the best deals for a long list of gifts and presents that you're trying to get. You're trying to order them in time to make sure you don't have to pay for faster shipping. We made that mistake already. We thought that we were like, oh, we're ahead of the game, and then we just kept putting off buying gifts. Now we had to pay for some expedited shipping on a few things, and we're going from one thing to the next to the next. And I feel like the celebration of Christmas Day has actually become the entire focal point of the season. Now you might say, well, of course, it's Christmas. It's Christmas season. That's what this is about. All right, but we rush from one thing to the next, and we try and save money so that we can give like Santa and yet pinch pennies like Scrooge and try and walk out of this with like the best things that we can, right? Like that's kind of what Christmas has turned into for us. And when Christmas Day comes, we have this big celebration, and then it's back to the races to recover from all the time that we took off to spend with family and all the money that we spent on gifts. So we're busy all the way up until Christmas. We celebrate it, and then we have to be busy again because of the way that we just got done celebrating. And that's kind of what this season carries for so many of us. All right, and I think more than ever, we could use a time to refocus on what really matters and what this season is truly about. All right, and this doesn't mean that we just make sure that we're saying Merry Christmas instead of Happy Holidays, or we have a nice little nativity scene that's set out at our house. Like, those aren't bad things. All of that's good, but that's not really when we boil down Christmas season, that's not really what it's all about for us. All right, so we live in a world with instant gratification. We have on-demand TV whenever we want it. You don't even have to wait for a certain day or a certain time to watch TV shows. Now you pull them up and you watch as many episodes as you want in a row. Everything's just kind of right there for us. We have, microwaves that cook things in a tenth of the time as everything else, and we have overnight shipping for our presents, and everything is just so fast. So fast. And I'm not dogging these things. Like that, they are not bad in and of themselves. Like, I'm glad that our world has developed. But the idea of stopping and waiting and being patient and having expectations for something that's going to come, the excitement and anticipation for a season, I think all of this has been lost. And we're so eager to get to Christmas that we blow through any idea of patiently waiting for it. And this translates into the Christmas story itself for us because we know how the story ends. Right? So we rush through it. And we're like, okay, this is what the Christmas story is. Anyone ever been guilty of flipping to the gospel and reading the Christmas story that actually gets to Jesus being born the fastest? Instead of being like, oh, I don't really want to read about all these things happening beforehand and this and this long thing about, oh, Elizabeth was pregnant and Mary was pregnant, and then she went and visited her, and this is happening. You're like, okay, let's go to a different book of the Bible. I know there's one of them that just starts off and Jesus is born, right? And we're just like so fast to get through all of these things. And we want to sing Joy to the World right away instead of a more somber, O come, Emmanuel. Like in the early church, they would not sing a song like Joy to the World until Christmas Day. That's why there were so many different Christmas songs. There were ones that were specifically meant to reflect on this time of waiting as you get closer to Christmas. They had been waiting for this promise of someone to come and deliver them, to rescue them. The anticipation had been building for centuries, ready to explode, ready to have something amazing burst onto the scene in greatness. And instead of some huge, amazing thing, a small baby arrives on the scene in basically the most humble way they possibly could. So this Christmas season, let's not jump right into the climax of the story. I want us to slow down, slow ourselves, to sit in this place of expectancy, of excitement, of anticipation for what God has done, what he is doing, and what he's going to do. All right, so take that type of attitude and translate that into these ideas of hope, peace, joy, and love. All right, and let's not put our own ideas onto those words, but allow them to take a new meaning for us. So let's just kind of be ready as we jump into our second week of Advent here to just kind of reframe how we look at this Christmas season and even reframe what these words mean to us. So let's do this. I want to just pray and then kind of jump in as we continue this morning. So God, Lord, forgive us forgive me for running from one thing to the next, for rushing through things. God, I want to slow down. I want to hear your voice, Lord. I want to spend time being excited about what this season means. God, and not just going to jumping right to a selfish celebration that is just fun for me, and that's why I want to do it. But God, I want to spend time just reflecting on what this means. God, we ask that you would help us do that this morning. Amen. So like we said, we kicked this off last week. This is our second week, which brings us to the word peace. All right, now I want us to kind of look at three different questions each one of these weeks in this series. I want us to look at what did this idea, this theme, so today would be peace, what did this mean to the people of God who were waiting for the Messiah, waiting for Jesus to come? That's the first question. The second would be, what does this mean to us today, to you and I sitting in this room? And then lastly, what does this mean to our world? To people that maybe would not celebrate Christmas for the same reasons or in the same way that we would. I know one of the hard things about focusing on something like Advent is each one of these four words that we have, all right, are still common words today. Sometimes you get words that you find in the Bible that really aren't used today, and they just hold the same meaning that they've always held. Now, these words, though, I feel like they've really changed over the years. And because of that, we often will miss the deeper meaning that is behind these words. All right, the original meaning that this would carry. So I think we could benefit from almost kind of like a word study. What did this word actually mean to them? The word peace in Hebrew is the word shalom. All right, and in Greek, it's eirene. And these words kind of carry a little bit of a different meaning than what we would necessarily think of when we think of peace. All right, when we think of the word peace, I think we often think about peace being the absence of war, the absence of fighting or turmoil. And that's true. But in the Bible, there's more to it than that. It isn't just the absence of something bad. It was the presence of something good. All right, so if two rival kingdoms were fighting, for them to reach peace or shalom, it wouldn't be to just stop fighting, but to actually start working together for each other's benefit. Like that is when peace has been achieved. Not just because they aren't fighting anymore. All right, so today, for us, that might mean like Peace is not just your kids not fighting with each other and arguing. It's your kids actually enjoying being around each other and spending time together. All right, that is a different type of peace than just not having fighting in it. All right, now, the definition of shalom or peace would be this: complete or whole. Complete or whole. All right, so it's used in the Bible to describe maybe like a stone that is actually how it should be. There's no cracks in it. There's no chips off the edges of it. This stone that they're placing into a wall or they're building with is complete. It's shalom. All right, so shalom refers to something that is complex with lots of pieces that is in a state of completeness. So a wall with no gaps, no holes would be complete. All right, now this isn't exactly always the way that we think of the word peace. When I think of peace, I don't think of complete and whole necessarily. All right, now our world as a whole, I think, has really only ever been in this state of peace at one point, and it was very short-lived. God brought everything together. He gave it all purpose, and he called it good. And this was a moment where our world was at peace, where our world was complete, it was whole, it was shalom. And it was very short-lived. And we broke that state of peace by choosing our own path, and ever since, our world has not been at peace. Not only has our world not been at peace, but our relationship with God was no longer whole and complete. So from that moment on, our world didn't know peace in the way that we were supposed to. And as you go through the Bible, you begin to see that God had a plan for restoring that peace. All right, and many times when peace is broken, you might, whether it's between two people or two groups or two countries, you might need a mediator to come in and help achieve peace again. And that is what we needed in this. That was God's plan for restoring peace. We looked at all of this a few months back. We did a series going through the whole Bible. And it was easy to see this story when we took a step back, that God had a plan to bring our world back to the way it was supposed to be. God had promised someone from the line of King David that would come and fix this issue. In the book of Isaiah chapter 9, we see this promise in a familiar verse, one that is often read at this time of year. All right, so Isaiah 9, verse 6. For a child is born to us, a son is given to us. The government will rest on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Prince of Peace. The Israelites spent somewhere close to 1,000 years waiting for this promise for the Messiah, for the Prince of Peace to come. Between when God promised this to David and when Jesus came, you're looking at roughly 1,000 years of waiting, of turmoil, of fighting, of not having peace, not just in their world, but in their relationship with God. Think about that, like generation after generation after generation. And then Jesus arrives on the scene. Can you imagine the excitement in this moment for the people that realized what was happening? Because there were some people at his birth, whether they were told by angels, whether God had told them. There were people in the temple that were like, this is the person. God told me that I was going to see the person. This is the person. Can you imagine, just for a moment, like stop and think, you've been waiting for 1,000 years, and all of a sudden it's happening right in front of you. Like the excitement that would be present in this. And this is what Advent is supposed to give to us in an absolutely tiny, small morsel of the same way of waiting for this to happen. All right, Advent is a symbol of the waiting, the longing, the yearning, the anticipation that they had for the arrival of Jesus. But in our modern world, we struggle to even wait 4 weeks as a symbolic representation for the 1,000 years that they waited. Like, I'm speaking to myself here. Like, I struggle waiting those 4 weeks. And most of the time we don't wait. Like we are planning our Christmas celebrations because we're going to this family, and then we're going to Emily's family, we're going to my family, we're trying to have our own. So you start creeping up and it's, December 15th, that's close enough. Let's have Christmas that weekend. And I can't even wait 4 weeks. They were waiting 1,000 years. So when we abbreviate the waiting, when we shortchange the symbolism that is there, we end up shortchanging the arrival of Jesus as well. That's what happens. So it's hard for us in our modern day to understand what really happened with the arrival of Jesus, the arrival of the Prince of Peace. Jesus spoke about peace throughout his ministry. Now remember what peace means: whole and complete. Nothing is missing or lacking. In John 14, Jesus said this, verse 27, I am leaving you with a gift, peace of mind and heart, and the peace I give is a gift the world cannot give. So don't be troubled or afraid. Jesus, the Prince of Peace, is giving us peace. Jesus, who is whole and complete, is making you and I whole and complete. Our relationship with God that was broken and needed a mediator is being fixed. Right? Like there was 2 problems. Our relationship with God was broken and missing peace, and our world was missing peace. In Isaiah 53, it says, but he was pierced for our rebellion, crushed for our sins. He was beaten so we could be whole. He was whipped so we could be healed. Now this word right here, whole, that's in that passage, he was beaten so that we could be whole, is in Hebrew shalom. It's the exact same word as peace. All of this happened so that you and I could be whole, so that we could have peace. And this is such an amazing thing, but we take it for granted. We take this peace for granted. In the same way that a country that hasn't gone to war in many years takes peace for granted. All right, now for us, for the U.S., we almost always have servicemen and women that are stationed all around the world doing different things. But the reality is this: as a nation, we have not had any type of war on our soil since 1865, all right, at the conclusion of the Civil War. Like we've been involved in things, a lot of different wars that have happened. But outside of we've had attacks, we had Pearl Harbor and we had September 11th, but we have not had a war on our soil. And I take that for granted. Anybody else? The fact that I am not displaced, the fact that I am not hearing air raid sirens and having to go to different places, the fact that I'm not worried about whether or not my house is going to be bombed, about whether or not I can actually go to a grocery store and there's full stock of food, maybe not toilet paper, but there's food. We have not had a war on our soil, and I take that for granted. In the same way that I take this peace that I can have with Jesus for granted. And I know for a fact that all of this is taken for granted. But because I don't wake up each day thanking God for it. Like, God, thank you so much there's not a war happening in Long Prairie, Minnesota. And similarly, because I've always had the grace of Jesus available to me, I take that relationship that I can have with him for granted. And this is what we are trying to reflect on in Advent season. To slow down and to try and think about what it would be like to not have peace with God in the same way we do. And to be waiting with anticipation and hope for the Messiah to come. When we do this, we can connect with what this meant to the world when Jesus arrived. That's what the purpose of this season of Advent is for us. And once we connect with what this meant for the Israelites, for them, it strengthens our understanding of what it means to us today. That in Jesus we have peace. We have peace in our relationship with God, but we can also experience peace in our lives and in our minds. I don't think this is news to anyone here today that we live in a pretty hostile time right now in our world. All right, now, this really isn't anything new. Our world has always been hostile, but in some ways it's better, in some ways it's worse. But I have found that if I'm not intentional in my life, my mind is never at peace. if I allow my mind to wander and to think about everything that's going on and to reflect on those things, if I spend too much time dwelling on that, my mind is not at peace. All right? One way I think I can be at peace is when I try and have control over everything. If anybody else is like me, like when I have control over something, then I feel like I'm at peace. But the reality is, do we ever have control over anything? Not really. And the moment I lose that control that I thought I had, all sense of peace is gone. Because I was never meant to have that type of control anyways. And the more I try and control things, the more I realize I don't have that control. And this is because the type of peace that I need isn't available by me doing anything, having control over anything. It's only available through one thing. This verse we read earlier, John 14:27, it said, I am leaving you with a gift, peace of mind and heart, and the peace I give is a gift the world cannot give. So don't be troubled or afraid. The world cannot give you peace. No matter what you try, you will not find it. There's nothing in this world that will make you complete or whole. All right, and the more we try and find peace through our world, the less peace we end up having. It is only found in Jesus. And the amazing thing about this is that the world can't give you peace, but it also means that the world cannot take away peace from you either. That is a gift that the world cannot give and it cannot take. All right, and I think for some of us in the room, like this is an incredibly freeing truth that we need to understand today. You need to change what your source of peace is and then focus completely on that source. If you are trying to find peace in anything in this world, you won't find it. And the second you try and give the world that ability to give you peace, you're giving the world that ability to take peace away from you. Because you're finding it in something that's temporary. When we find peace in Jesus, nothing can take that. Christmas season is upon us, and maybe you're feeling more stressful than you normally do. Maybe you're thinking about all the things you have to buy, the added expenses for that, thinking about traveling, maybe hosting family, going to family. Maybe family itself is the stress. You're like, man, if I could just spend Christmas without my family, I actually would be great. This is a stressful time. Don't let it take peace away from you. Don't give the world and your circumstances that type of power over you. When we put value on the wrong things, and when we think that what matters is the gifts and the food and the decorations and the celebrations, when we think that we need to try and hold up our kids' expectations for what this celebration should look like and what gifts they want to get, and we're trying to make all this extra money so we can buy all these different gifts for people, when we put everything into there, we are giving up peace. And we are allowing the world to dictate our peace. Philippians 4:6-7. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank him for all he has done. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. His peace will guard your heart and minds as you live in Christ Jesus. When you slow down this Christmas season, reflect on what this truly means. Remember what peace is all about and what it isn't about. All right, you can connect with Jesus and experience peace. The peace that he died so that we could have. Don't let the world take that gift from you, all right? But it's your choice. If you allow it, if you put your peace in the world, you are allowing the world to take it from you. And this is hard because when sin came, it disrupted peace in two places, like we said. Our relationship with God, which Jesus has mended and fixed, but it also destroyed peace in our world. And just like how the Israelites were waiting for 1,000 years for peace with God, we are still waiting for peace in our world. Like that is still when we think about peace in this time of waiting, we are still waiting for this. That is something that we are hoping for, we are expecting for, we are longing for. All right, they were waiting for Jesus to come and fix the relationship. We're waiting for him to come and fix our world. So what hope does the world have for peace as we wait? It has you. It has the church. That is the world's hope for peace. If we inside the church are feeling stressed right now, think about how much more people who have zero relationship with the source of peace are feeling stressed. And this is so important that we get this in our own lives and this understanding of peace, because it's our responsibility to bring this peace outside of these four walls. And Christmas time is an easy time to do it. Most Americans know exactly what time of the year you can get good deals on buying things, right? Like Emily and I have been talking about, oh man, it'd be really great to get a new stove. Our stove isn't really working very well. Well, you know that there's like Memorial Day, Labor Day, which is really weird that those are like big sale times. But there's like certain times of the year that you can get good deals on appliances, all right? In the same way, we need to understand as a church, there are certain times of the year that people are open to God more than they normally would be. And Christmas is one of those times. Many people have found memories of they're going to church as a kid, and they're like, yeah, I'd maybe be open to going to church again. Because they have good memories of it. They remember that. They get all warm and fuzzy with the Christmas nostalgia that kind of goes through their minds. There was a survey that was done about attending church at Christmas time. The amount of people who are planning on going to church in this season compared to any other time of the year is up significantly, if you didn't know that. All right? But of the people, so they asked all these people, who's planning on going to church during Christmas time? And that number was higher than it normally would be. Then they took the people that said, no, I'm not planning on going. And they said, how many of you would go if someone you knew asked you to go? So of the people that have zero plans right now of going to Christmas or going to church at all during this season, and as you can see, 57% said, I would be likely to go. I have no plans of going to church over the next month. But if someone I knew asked if I wanted to join them at church, 57% of those people said I would be likely to go. That's crazy. I think a lot of us think that if I invite somebody to church, the answer is just going to be no. Like, it's like winning the lottery. Maybe I'm going to be lucky and someone's going to say, yeah, I'll go with you. But you find out that these are actually really high numbers. And this is one of the ways that we can bring peace to our world. I would argue it's about the only way we bring peace to our world is by introducing our world to the source of peace. That's what our role is. That's what your job is. That's what my job is. We can't miss these opportunities. We need to be willing to step outside our comfort zones. All right, so here's where we are today. Here's where we are just kind of for challenges for us of what we need to be doing, all right? The first one is this. I want to strongly encourage you to slow down in your life right now. Find ways to reflect on what this season means, not just to you, but to all of history. All right, like I want you to slow down and just be like, what did this mean? What does it mean to me? Where is it where I am just running from one thing to the next to the next? How can I slow down and reflect this season? All right, let's not just blitz through this. All right, and I don't just mean blitzing through Christmas. I mean the weeks leading up to it, right now. This time, right now. Not just, hey, we're going to go to Christmas Eve, and we're going to have a nice we'll read the Christmas story on Christmas morning. Right now, what can you be doing What can your family be doing to actually put things into perspective and reframe this Christmas season? Find some ways to lean in to the waiting, to lean into having to be patient. Now, I want to give us a chance this morning with each one of these things to kind of commit to some action steps. All right, I'm not following up with any of this. I'm not going to be texting you or emailing you throughout the week. Are you doing this type of thing? But I do want to give us an opportunity right now to commit as we go through each one of these things. So I want to know this morning, how many of us would say, you know what, I want to commit to saying that I want to slow down starting today. And I don't want to go too quickly through this Christmas season. All right, if that's you this morning, how many of you guys would say, I want to commit to that? I want to commit to slowing down. Maybe you've already found yourself running from one thing to the next to the next. I think a second area for us is this. Check where your heart and your mind are. You personally, do you feel peace in your life? If you don't, what are you allowing to deter you from peace? All right, the only way the world has any control over your peace is if you let it. So if this has been a hard season for you, where in your mind you are constantly thinking about different things, worrying about different things. How is this going to turn out? How is this going to happen in my life? Are we going to be able to pay this bill? Are we going to be able to do this? What's going to happen to our family? What's going to happen to our nation? What's going to happen to our world? If these things are flooding your mind and your thoughts and your focus, I can guarantee you are not feeling peace. Because there's nothing about our world right now that would give you peace. So if you aren't feeling peace and you want to take steps back towards peace, I want to know if that's you this morning. I want to this is just kind of just for us. If that's you this morning, if you're not feeling peace and you need to take steps back towards it, how many of you guys would say, I want to commit to doing that over the next few weeks here as we are headed towards Christmas season? If that's you, yeah. I think the last thing for us, how can you bring peace to the world? What can you be doing to bring peace to those around you? Who is God putting on your heart? Maybe God has already been telling you, like, there's somebody that I've told you time and time again to be reaching out to them. I've told you to invite them to church. I've told you to be involved in their life. And maybe because of comfort zone or other things, it just hasn't happened. And God is saying right now, don't miss this opportunity. All right, this is the time of year. This is the time right now that you need to be doing that. Right? Like if you walk in after, the Saturday after Black Friday and start asking for the same deals, it's not going to happen. You had to be there. This is that moment, church. This is that moment. This is that season. If God has put someone on your heart, He's put them there for a reason. He's walking ahead of you in this. He's preparing that person's heart. Now it's time for us to bring peace and to bring the source of peace to those people. How many of us in here would say, I want to commit to bringing peace beyond my life and beyond my family and my house? I want to bring peace into this world. I want to bring the source of peace into this world. And I'm going to commit to doing that over the next couple weeks here. Maybe that looks like inviting somebody to church. Maybe that looks like being more involved in someone's life that God has put on your heart. How many of us would say that that's something we're going to commit to? Yeah. I want to do this. I want to just kind of pray. If you fall into any one of these three areas, I want to pray right now just for all of this, that God would just begin to maybe give us the courage. Maybe this is a new thing for you, that he would go ahead of us and just kind of prepare the way. God, we trust you, Lord, and if you are asking us to do something, Lord, whether that just means slowing down, giving up this idea of what we think Christmas should be or has to be, and slowing down and reflecting on what this season really should be. God, or maybe we are just struggling with having any amount of peace in our life and in our minds. God, you say that you are the source of peace and that you bring peace to us, God, that you give that gift. Lord, we just ask for an abundance of peace right now. God, and I pray that out of that abundance, out of that overflow of peace in our own life, that we would just begin to bring that to the world around us, to the people around us. God, that we could just focus on that this season. I want to give one more opportunity as we just kind of keep our eyes closed this morning. Maybe you're here this morning and you've never experienced peace like this. You've never realized, or you've never made the decision to give your life to Jesus and say, I want to put my trust, my hope, my faith, everything, my life in Jesus. And I want to experience this peace that I can have with him for the first time. If that's you here this morning, I want to give you an opportunity to respond with no one else looking around. If that's you, would you just slip your hand up? I want to be in prayer with you this morning. If you're watching this at a later time, I want you to get in contact with our church, get in contact with me. This is one of the biggest, most important decisions we can make in our life. But along with it, it can be one of the hardest. And it's not one that we're meant to do alone. So we want to be connecting with you. If you have questions about that this morning, I'd love to connect with you afterwards today, and we could talk more about that.